In the first minute of the first episode of Legend of the Galactic Heroes, a narrator expresses two ideas to us. One, all things erode and vanish with time. Even the stars one day will grind to dust. Two, space is huge, too huge to comprehend, and anything you do is insignificant on a cosmic scale. As we pan over the last remnants of a long-gone civilization, we're effectively being told that the events we're about to witness, for all their drama and excitement and poetry, hold no objective meaning or significance. They do not matter, and they won't be remembered. The show humbles itself before beginning its story in earnest. It's like if Puck's apology at the end of A Midsummer Night's Dream came at the beginning of the play. It brings to question everything we're about to see, no matter how engaging or entertaining it is. This is Legend of the Galactic Heroes. Beginning as a 10-volume science fiction novel series by Yoshiki Tanaka, and then later adapted into a 110-episode anime between 1988 and 1997, this is the story of a war between two major superpowers, the rising Galactic Empire and the Democratic Free Planets Alliance. Leading the Empire's forces is Reinhard von Lohengrin, a young noble whose intelligence in the matters of war has resulted in him rising up the ranks. His intellectual counterpart among the Free Planets Alliance is Yang Wenli, a historian who joined the army to help pay off his debts. His understanding of history allows him to think outside the box and predict patterns, allowing him to create new, inventive strategies on the battlefield. The war also involves a neutral party, the planet Phazon, which profits off the war no matter who's winning, operations being led by Adrian Rubinski, who, well, look at him, he's basically Lex Luthor. Oh, and also there's a bajillion other characters that I found impossible to keep track of, and I only watched the first episode. Like a lot of military space operas, this story is packed with details. We get a sense of the technology, the politics, the general sci-fi concepts, but in a way that may not be considered cinematic or even exciting. Here are the scenes of the first episode in order. People standing around talking. People standing around talking. People standing around talking. People standing around talking, people standing around talking, people standing around talking, people sitting and talking, standing and talking, sitting and talking, 10 seconds of space battle, and back to standing and talking, 30 seconds of space battle, running and talking, standing and talking, sitting and talking, standing and talking, walking and talking, 30 seconds of space battle, a character dies, and some more standing and talking to top it off. Roll credits. This would seem like an odd way to run your show, especially in the first episode where the goal usually is to pitch the story to your new viewers and hook them in for the long run. The less than 2 minutes worth of space battles in this war story aren't exactly the most dynamic things either. Ships mostly stay in place and shoot laser weapons from a distance. It isn't exactly the thrilling space combat of the Gundam series. All this non-stop talking and exposition would probably set off a lot of show-don't-tell warning klaxons in the brain of media critics, but I would argue that it is showing us something. It's showing us boredom. It's showing us the huge amounts of time between any given battle. Usually, in our media depiction of war, we cut out the planning and waiting and get to all that juicy, it's not happening to me so it's thrilling action, when in reality, there are large gaps of downtime between skirmishes that leave those involved time to think and ponder and reflect. It also shows us how much of war is handled by powerful people in offices or dining rooms making plans to grab as much personal power from this war as they can and, how to win the war, I guess. Unlike the space battles in something like Star Wars, which were modeled off the aerial dogfighting of World War I and II, Legends of the Galactic Heroes opts for a more naval approach in its battles, slow-moving battleships making a lot of complicated calculations and then firing their sci-fi equivalent of torpedoes. The results are action sequences that have a lot of build-up, a brief flash of violence, and then it's back to working out the next attack, back to standing around and talking. There is little room for on-the-fly tactics. Everything is acted in a deliberate fashion. It's an old-fashioned model of war, signified by the fact that it's scored not by an original science fiction soundtrack, but by pieces of classical music. There's an intentional form here. Like the opening moments that acts as a splash of water on the face, framing the events of the story as ultimately insignificant, the way this story plays out with all of its standing and talking communicates to us both a realistic timescale and the mechanical nature of the war machine. Usually, the go-to method of demonizing war media is presented as ugly and cruel, which is totally accurate and fair. Legend of Galactic Heroes instead opts to show war that is pointless and largely dull, deflating the significance of war while not outright sacrificing the romanticism of war. The primary conflict of this first episode isn't the space battle itself, but the generational conflict presented by the show's two main characters, Reinhard and Yang. Reinhard leads his army to take aggressive action, which the older admirals take umbrage with. The young leader's new tactics prove to be successful, and the older generation of leaders are humbled. Yang is not yet a leader, just an advisor who pretty much predicts Reinhard's plans and insists to his captains that they plan for the contingency. They ignore Yang and are caught off guard by the Galactic Empire, losing the battle because they stuck to old ideas and failed to listen to new ideas from a younger generation. Of all the things this episode of this 1980s anime reminded me of, the 1943 film The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp feels the most apt. Not Gundam, not Star Wars, but this British Technicolor war romance. The film concerns the life of Clive Candy as he moves up military ranks over the decades, starting as a lieutenant in 1902 and ending up a major general in 1939 during World War II, and has to come to terms with the changing attitudes and tactics newer generations of soldiers bring with them, directly challenging his ideologies. Reinhard and Yang find themselves trapped in a sea of Clive Candies. The older generation sees war as nothing more than a numbers game. The Free Planets Alliance fleet outnumbers the Galactic Empire fleet 2-1 and surround them on three sides. The conventional wisdom from the older generation is that the Galactic Empire should play defensively, hold for time. Both sides believe this, so the Free Planets Alliance is caught completely by surprise when the Galactic Empire becomes the aggressor and charges forward, something only Yang can foresee. The Galactic Empire wins the battle by going against conventional wisdom. This is not the only ideological conflict at hand. The Galactic Empire represents autocracy, while the Free Planets Alliance represents democracy, and both of their representative heroes, the Galactic Heroes of the title, are idealized representations that show that their respective systems work. Reinhard is a proof of autocracy, a nobleman whose standing makes him destined for greatness. He belongs to a system that shows that one great man should run things. Yang is a proof of democracy, a system that allows a citizen to ascend the ranks of power not because they are of a noble blood, but for the content of their character and the quality of their skills. This is matched in their visual design. Reinhard is always composed, statuesque, back straight, standing above everyone else. Yang holds an easy posture. He sits around and leans on things and is often holding a stack of papers detailing different ideas. A hero destined versus a hero self-made. This is a lot to derive from just one short 20-minute episode, which is a testament to the craft of the show. It's easy to see why this might not grab a general audience. It's slow, it's talky, and what little action there is isn't exactly dynamic. But it is a fantastic show to chew on, one that actively promotes meditation on its ideologies, while at the same time keeping itself humbled. Legend of the Galactic Heroes hasn't made much presence in the United States until very, very recently. The first three novels were translated and published in English in 2016, and the anime got its first American release via streaming in 2017, which means now is the time for a new generation of English-speaking science fiction readers to discover it like I just have now. I look forward to seeing where all of this goes.